So the transfer window is officially shut. We can relax now. No more players are going to be skipping training. And this is the Wolves squad that we're going to have until at least January. Today, guys, we're going to be looking at those late deals and having a bit more of an insight, or getting a bit more of an insight, I should say, on 4 players in particular that Wolves have signed over the last couple of days or so, all in this one jam-packed video. So if you do enjoy it, please do hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate the support as we've hit 16,000 subscribers, which is amazing, so thank you so much. And yeah, whilst you're watching this video, do have a think, how would you rate Wolves transfer window out of 10? Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Before we kick off though, a big shout out to the guys over at Memento. We spoke about this a couple of transfer videos ago, but you can download their app. It's at the top of the description down below. It's a really cool app to basically keep track of all the sports events that you've been going to, in particular the football games. As you can see on today's clip, I've gone back to last season, adding some of the games that I've been to. So it's really cool. Keeps track of all the games that you go to, the amount of stadiums that you've visited. So yeah, really cool way to track that. And obviously you can follow other people, see which games they're going to, and see which grounds they've been to. So if you want to drop me a follow, it's on the screen. Dave has a party there, and be sure to have a look at the app. Use the early access code Talking Wolves as well, with the link in the description. So we are going to be talking about the brand new signings today. Of course, we've had little snippets of what they're about on some of the old transfer videos, but we're going to be taking a deeper look into them today and getting thoughts of fans as well. So the first one is Mr. Enso Gonzalez, the young Paraguayan winger and attacker, 18 years of age, signing from Paraguayan club Libertad this week. It said that the deal is in and around £5 million. 20% of any future sale will go to his former club Libertad, and he signed for Wolves on a 6-year deal, plus the option of an additional year as well. So that contract could go all the way up to 2030. But Wolves obviously have really high hopes in this young man. A player which I don't think he's going to just burst on the scene and be unbelievable this year. It's going to be almost a project for Wolves, but a pretty low risk one, I suppose, with the value. And it's such an amazing story for him. You know, I've listened to clips and podcasts about the whole situation. He's obviously a player that Wolves have been tracking and keeping a look on for the last few months, but literally he was at a party with his friends and family over the weekend, and on Monday he was literally just told, get your passport, we're going to Europe. This young man had never been out of South America before, and all he took to Birmingham Airport was his little backpack. Knows very, very little English. His mother said that he was going to be starting to learn English this September anyway, ahead of a potential move to Europe in the future. But it's a fantastic story, and a really big opportunity for this young man who's almost living a dream at the moment. Enso has got a small frame. He's a very good dribbler, fantastic on the ball, really tricky feet. There's been some great comments as well on the recruitment. You know, one of the things that I've loved most, especially since Matt Hobbs has come into charge as Wolves sporting director, is the snippets of information, whether it be the scouting reports that Wolves put out or whether it be the statements and quotes that Matt Hobbs puts out, because there's been some fantastic snippets of information. The Enso Gonzalez one is really intriguing as well, because the Wolves recruitment team were first made aware of Enso in 2022 by their data recruitment analyst Will Sanders. He flags up young players from around the world, and then the club's regional South American scout at the time, Pablo Rodriguez, have followed up the interest, be watching the young winger. He even described him as electric. And obviously more and more people were interested and started looking at this player. And obviously it's come to this where Gary O'Neill has said, yep, let's bring him in. And Wolves have had the ability to do that. But we've got the thoughts of Roberto Rojas as well. He works for DAZN. He's a Paraguayan American football fan. He runs a podcast as well, part of a football podcast called Guarani Vision. They've spoke loads about Enso Gonzalez this week as well. So I'll be sure to drop a link to Roberto and his podcast, but these are his thoughts on this move.
Hey guys, it's Roberto Rojas from DAZN, and I'm here to talk about the new transfer and the new signing of Enso Gonzalez, the 18-year-old Paraguayan winger who just signed for Wolverhampton Wanderers. This is a move that I think not a lot of people expected. It's someone who just made his debut in professional football in Paraguay for Libertad just literally a year ago. Now he's making the big jump at such a young age all the way to the Premier League. And, you know, this is certainly something that has been really happening behind the scenes, done quietly. Again, the move didn't really get as much traction until a couple of days ago when we saw him being shown in Paraguay's airport traveling to England. So this is a really big move for him. I think certainly the talent was always there. You have someone who is very quick, but also very raw. And I think he's someone that can hopefully be incorporated in Gary O'Neill's style as someone that can take it to the next level, because you have someone who, hasn't played a lot of first-team football, roughly around 30 games, 3 goals, 2 assists. And I think he's someone that I think can indeed better himself for English football and try to adapt as much as he can. I think some of the things, like you said, 5 million quid for him for the transfer, a certain percentage going to Libertad. And I think one of the things that I think is going to be a big turning point is how good is he for the Premier League? Because we always see that with some young South American players, the biggest case, of course, with Julio Enciso, who took a few months to adapt to go into Brighton and then, hit it off from there. I hopefully would expect a certain case for Enzo. I think, this is someone that maybe is like a similar stature to Enciso. You get that really quick winger that isn't afraid to shoot onto goal, can play on either flanks, can play centrally, can play as a striker as well. He can play in so many type of positions that I think he's someone that is very much going to be important for this system. And I think he could be good enough for the Premier League. I think, you see that from the comments made from, scouts, from sporting director Matt Hobbs, saying that he's ready to play in the first team, ready to play in the Premier League and first team football as soon as possible. So I think this is someone that is going to take a bit of time to adapt, hopefully in the system and with the youth that obviously Wolves have. And of course, trying to adapt to an entirely different league and an entirely different style that allows you to think much more quicker than ever before, that you don't really see in Paraguay, which is much more slower but aggressive. I think if he's able to adapt to that, I think he can definitely flourish over there at Wolverhampton. So really excited to see. It's a big thing for Paraguayan football. Only the 3rd ever player to go straight from Paraguay to English football. We had that with Diego Gavilan, who went to Newcastle in 2000, Julio Enciso last year when he went to Brighton from Libertad, and now we have Enso Gonzalez going to Wolves. So really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really good move for him. I'm excited to see how he adapts there, and yeah, hopefully it all goes well for him, for Paraguayan football, and of course for Wolves as well.
So big thanks to Roberto on that. Like I said, I'll leave a link to his podcast and his social medias in the description down below. He's been posting all week about this transfer and keeping Wolves fans up to date on that. So we obviously really do appreciate that as well. We're going to be moving on to the second signing of this week, which was Santiago Bueno, the centre-back coming from Girona in Spain. 24 years of age, turning 25 in November. The deal is in and around £8.5 million, and he signed on a 5-year deal for Wolves. Central defender, of course, Uruguayan international. Although he wasn't part of their World Cup squad, he has made his debut this year for Uruguay under Marcelo Bielsa as well. 6'4", right-footed. I think with Bueno, he's probably going to be a long-term successor for Craig Dawson. I think that he will get opportunities this year. The good thing is, obviously, Wolves are still in the Cup at the moment. Obviously, the Carabao Cup, we'll have the FA Cup later in the year. For players like this that may not necessarily just jump straight into the team, we're still going to get opportunities to see these players over the next few weeks or so. Good ability on the ball, though, Bueno. What you would describe as a proper ball-playing defender, comfortable on the ball, being able to move it, despite his tall frame as well. And, of course, after leaving Uruguay, he had signed for Barcelona, so he was at Barca for some time, so that's probably where that technical ability comes into things a little bit more. So I'm excited about this deal. I think with Bueno, it's a good price. Of course, there have been some whispers because Girona have got ties in with Manchester City, whether this was part of the Mateus Nunes deal going to Manchester City, and obviously Doyle, who we'll speak about in a minute, and Bueno coming this way as well. But really excited about this signing. I think it could be, again, another fantastic move for Wolves. I think it's a good fee. And this is the one thing with Wolves. I think there's been a little bit of a split in the fan base in regards to their opinions on this. And that's why I've asked at the start of the video in regards to your ratings to this transfer window. Because I think some people are underwhelmed. But I think the 4 signings that we're talking about today are really clever signings from Wolves. 4 players that are really, they're quality footballers. And Wolves haven't spent over the odds to get them in. You know, I think if we had spent 120, 150 million this window, people would be like, wow, Wolves have had a good window. But because we've signed 4 players, all 4 of them, in my opinion, under the radar, 4 players that people haven't necessarily heard a lot about, it's making people doubt Wolves. But genuinely, I think some of these players are good players. Not necessarily system players, they're good footballers. So let's wait and see. But Santi Bueno in for, like I said, in around £8.5 million on a 5-year deal. We'll move on to Tommy Doyle now. We'll kick off with Stephen McInerney, who's a Manchester City fan and YouTuber. He's going to be giving his thoughts, of course, on the Nunes deal, going from Wolves to Manchester City, and a little bit of his thoughts on Tommy Doyle coming the other way.
Hey Dave, Stephen here from Esteemed Company, lifelong Manchester City fan, and of course YouTuber, content creator, all that kind of stuff. Some thoughts on Matheus Nunes and Tommy Doyle. It's been a weird one for Man City because a lot of our season so far has been shaped around the Kevin De Bruyne injury and the sort of non-existence of Calvin Phillips. Now Calvin Phillips, of course, at one point was considered a really good player, but he's been sort of a non-entity under Guardiola for various reasons. I don't know the reason, but it seems like Pep doesn't trust him. So basically, with no De Bruyne and no Phillips, we need a midfielder. It looks like it's going to be Paqueta at West Ham until he got himself in some trouble, allegedly. And Nunes has come in as the replacement. He is a man that Guardiola, of course, knew and really liked a year ago. He had that famous quote about him being one of the best players in the world. And if Pep likes him, then I got to trust him on this. I know he's all sort of divided people over at Wolves, but you can't really deny that pedigree he had at Sporting. And I know there is talent there, as you've seen that occasionally at Wolves. And obviously, I'm sure it does, you know, sting a little bit how he's left the club. It hasn't been smooth, and I get that. But as a City fan, look, we do need the numbers, and he sort of does remind me a little bit stylistically of a Kovacic in terms of how he can drive past people going forward. He does have the physicality, a good turn of pace, more of a progressive ball carrier than maybe City are used to in midfield. But that seems to be what Pep's kind of focusing on these days. So for us, I mean, as City fans, we're excited to see Rodri potentially get a rest. I think what will happen is Nunes will play as an 8 and Kovacic occasionally will sit a little bit deeper and give Rodri a rest. And that'll be the squad options because Rodri, the best midfielder in world football, in my personal opinion, is just playing so much football these days that man is knackered. He's absolutely cream crackered and he does need a rest here and there. So I do think he'll finally get it. I suspect under Guardiola, Nunes will go on to be such a wonderful footballer. I've got no doubt that he's got the raw ability. It's up to him whether he works hard enough to do that, whether he has the patience enough to do that, because he will be rested and rotated an awful lot at City. But that talent is there. We've seen that pedigree in the Champions League. We've seen it for Portugal and we've seen glimpses of it in the Premier League as well. So for me, for the money these days, given the market, given £100 million players and all that, and it's a good bit of money, you know, like you made a bit of a profit. We got a good midfielder for around 60 million. And you also got Tommy Doyle in return. I really like Tommy. I genuinely do. He's a top lad, of course. He's got a Man City heritage in his blood. Both his grandparents played for City and won an FA Cup. A wonderful player and a wonderful leader as well. You'll like Tommy Doyle. He reminds me a little bit of a young James Ward-Prowse in terms of that wonderful dead ball expertise. He's got a mean cross on him. Honestly, that boy can whip in across. He can take a free kick and he can play a pass. And he's a little bit more technically gifted than people give him credit for. He was a big part of Sheffield United's promotion chase last season when he forced his way into the team. And what you'll get from him is a man who's naturally a captain. Like, I've seen him, like, you know, grab games by the scruff of the neck, and he's always combative. He's always hard-working. Like, he's good pace, not fast, but good solid pace. Not the biggest, but still strong and combative, and technically sort of smart and very intuitive on the ball. I don't know if he's good enough to sort of, like, reach the levels of Nunes and Matinho Neves immediately, because obviously they are 3 big players that have moved on there with immense quality. But he's a good footballer. With time, would grow into more than good enough as a Premier League player. Take a little bit of time, but you're signing an excellent young player, and hopefully he develops well there. I really do love Tommy. He's a top lad and a really good player. Fingers crossed that he does well for you. Hopefully Nunes will do well for us as well, but they are my take on this. I can't wait to see, and I'm interested to see what Wolves fans think on Nunes as well. Cheers.
So big thanks once again to Stephen. I'll make sure I leave a link to his fantastic YouTube channel in the description down below. But yeah, Wolves, with Tommy Doyle, they've said they've kept an eye on him for a short while. A player that they kept tabs on all throughout last year with the view of possibly bringing him in this season. Of course, he was out on loan at Sheffield United last year. They got promoted. Took him a little while to break into that team. But I suppose that shows good character, that he was willing to work for a place in the team. Of course, Wolves have got him on loan for this season with a buy option then of around €5 million, so just over £4 million, which again I think is phenomenal value. Although Manchester City do hold 50% of any potential profit the Wolves do make on that Tommy Doyle deal. But I think in terms of, again, depth, Tommy Doyle's not necessarily a player that's just going to walk in the team. But like I said, if he's a player there that is willing to work for things and willing to work to get into the team, I think he's a phenomenal option. And like I said again against Bueno, there are going to be opportunities for Wolves to see Tommy Doyle in action. When we play Ipswich in the Cup in a few weeks' time. I think central midfield is an area that, well, you'll get a lot of suspensions there, so Tommy Doyle will get opportunities that way. But I think naturally you will sub a central midfielder on quite often as well, and he may well be in that squad for Crystal Palace tomorrow as well. Technical player, scored some fantastic goals for Sheffield United. I'm sure if you search them up on social media or YouTube, you'll find some of those. But good at set pieces. This is one thing I've felt Wolves have lacked probably since Barry Douglas, really, with the year we came up. We had Barry Douglas, Ruben Neves did like to score a few free kicks, but not a huge amount since we've come back into the Premier League. So I think having a dead ball specialist is a real bonus. And if Tommy Doyle can produce, whether it's even only 2, 3, 4, set piece goals a season or add corner assists in there, that's way more than what Wolves will get. And even corners, look, the amount of corners that we score from is really low. So this is a bonus for Wolves if you can get Tommy Doyle in and he can, add 2, 3, 4 goals for us a season just from his set pieces alone. I think that is obviously a bonus. Just from the behind the scenes video of him, he seems like a confident lad, got energy, he's a friendly lad. I think he'll fit in brilliantly with this Wolves squad as well. Now we've got Nick from the Sheffield United way, of course, would have seen a lot of Tommy Doyle last season, and his thoughts on the midfielder.
Hi Dave and all the Wolves fans, it's Nick here from the Sheffield United way, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Tommy Doyle. Now, Tommy Doyle came on loan from Man City with James McAtee to the Blades in the Championship last season. We obviously got promoted and he did really well, but it didn't start perfectly for him because he got injured in pre-season. So that meant that Ollie Norwood started the season and he had to dispossess one of the best ever Championship midfielders because Ollie Norwood's got 4 promotions to the Premier League. And he did it. He did it in probably halfway through the season. Ollie Norwood could not get in the team because Tommy Doyle was playing out of his skin. Now, I'll go through some of the pros and cons of Mr. Doyle himself. Now, firstly, he's probably weaker than what you'd want as a defensive midfielder. He's certainly more of a defensive midfielder than an attacking midfielder, but I would say that he's neither, to be honest. I would say he's more of a box-to-box Steven Gerrard sort of midfielder. Gets stuck in, good passer of the ball, whether that's short or long. Can take a great free kick, great corner, can shoot from distance as well. He showed that in scoring an absolute screamer against Blackburn in the quarterfinals to send us through to play his parent club at Wembley in the semis. I wish him all the best. He always got stuck in. He always gave 100% for the Blades, and I'm sure he'll do that in gold next season. I just wish we could see him in red and white. Don't get me wrong, I'm not 100% sure whether he's going to play 90 minutes every week for Wolves. He probably wouldn't have for Sheffield United, but I wish him all the best. He's got a long career ahead of him. I just don't think that career would have ever been at Man City. But for a team like Wolves, for a team like the Blades, he will do well, and I think he will be a bottom end to mid-table Premier League player for the rest of his career. Good luck, Tommy.
And finally, we move on to the deadline day signing, or the late signing of Jean-Ricner Bellegarde. Coming in from Strasbourg last night, about 11:15. This was announced. Wolves representatives flying out yesterday privately from Birmingham Airport to Strasbourg to get this deal done. And it was a deal done quite late in the end. It's a player, I think the interest was first reported on Monday. Went very quiet for a few days, and then it sort of reignited sort of Thursday evening, and it was an exclusive by French journalist Santi Bueno yesterday morning that Wolves had had a deal agreed with the player, and it was just about getting a deal agreed with Strasbourg. They really were not keen about letting him go, and that's why this deal is very big for Wolves. 5-year deal, like I said, 25 years of age, in and around €15 million for Bellegarde. Wolves have got him noted down as an attacking midfielder, but I think this is a very similar player to Matheus Nunes, someone who is a player that likes to get on the ball, likes to drive forward, can play out wide and drift in field like Nunes was doing. And someone asked me a little bit earlier on, what do I think Wolves' best 11 is? And obviously without seeing Bellegarde, it's very hard to say, but I think you could say maybe the first couple of games of the season. I think last game, you know, against Everton, and you swap probably Aït-Nouri in for Bueno, and I would probably say Bellegarde in for Hwang. But he's had a fantastic start already this season in France in Ligue 1. I think 4 goal contributions, 2 goals, 2 assists early on, and he's highly thought of. But I've got the thoughts of Jeremy Smith. He's been on the channel before. He's an avid watcher of French football, and here are his thoughts on Bellegarde and a little bit more information about the player.
So Wolves assigned Jean-Ricner Bellegarde from Strasbourg, and I'm quite excited by this signing. I've been a big fan of this player since he sprung onto the scene sort of 4 or 5 years ago. He began his career at Lens, playing in Ligue 2, actually becoming captain of the team at times, even though he was still very young when he was there. And then moved on to Strasbourg, and over the last sort of 4 years has established himself as a very good Ligue 1 player. One of those players who sort of doesn't stand out as one of the stellar names of the likes of, you know, Mbappe or you know, various other names that have gone on to bigger and better things in Spain or England or for the national team. But a sort of stalwart who you can always rely on to sort of come up with the goods. He's pretty versatile. He plays mainly as a kind of box-to-box midfielder with a slightly more attacking bent than I don't know, say Traoré, who's obviously a lot more of a defensive player. But he can also play even further forward. He's quite effective off the flanks. He's not the biggest guy in the world, so he's not going to sort of dominate in the air or anything like that. But I think he's very intelligent, very astute, technically very good, and he's one of those players who he himself has acknowledged is, you know, because of his sort of maybe physical limitations, has developed a very good footballing brain and works hard to sort of be one step ahead of the opposition, and, you know, kind of knowing what he's going to do with the ball before he even gets to it, or it gets to him rather. Sorry, he's comfortable to sort of dribble past his man. He's got a nice range of passing. He says that his long range passing should be better, but his short range passing is good. So he's very much a kind of, I guess in a way, a Houssem Aouar number 8 type, where he's sort of definitely more contributing to the forward area, although he can do a defensive shift as well. He's got high energy, really good stamina, and he's kind of, you know, the player who won't necessarily come up with huge sort of assist stats, but probably is, you know, if you looked at the sort of penultimate pass before the assist, he's probably very high up there, because he's always keeping the attacks going, always sort of popping up between lines to make sure that the team keeps the ball and is able to kind of carve an opening. He probably doesn't score as many as he should do, but he's gradually improving. I mean, basically everything in his career, he's improved year on year. And, you know, obviously it's hard to read too much into 3 matches of this season, but he's arguably been the best player in Ligue 1 so far this year. He's completely dominated both of Strasbourg's wins, one of which was against Lyon. He's already got 2 goals and 2 assists, and it feels like he's really ready at 25 to kind of take the next step up. And I think that's what his thinking was. He was offered a new contract, but declined it because he wanted to sort of find a new challenge for himself. And I don't think the Strasbourg fans begrudge him that. I think he's a very popular player. He seems a really nice guy, feet on the ground. And I think, especially for midfielders, I always feel like it's a big step up from Ligue 1 to the Premier League, the high intensity, the sort of non-stop nature of it. I think it's a big step in terms of not physicality, but the kind of stamina and the end-to-end nature of it. So I think you have to be a little bit patient and give him a little bit of an adjustment period. But I think he's got the personality, the temperament, and most of all the skills and ability to really settle quickly and hopefully become a very important member of, if not the team, then certainly the squad. And I think he'll become, I hope, a big fan's favourite.
Fantastic again. Big thank you to Jeremy for his thoughts. But again, the articles from Wolves, if you get 10, 15, 20 minutes, and I would suggest go and read the scout reports that Wolves have put out on these players to learn even more about them and just the process behind them. But the scout report for Bellegarde says Wolves' first report on Bellegarde was submitted on the 11th of May 2018, where Alex Acton, he's a scout and analyst still at the club. He reported on Bellegarde's performance when he was playing for Lens. He was captaining the side at 19, which I know Jeremy had mentioned as well. And again, Wolves have had, since then, they've put regional coordinators in France, Romain Barque, who've been carrying out regular reports on the midfielder as well. So I think this is a really good signing for Wolves. He's a player that looks quality. You see some of the charts, if you're into the sort of analytical side of the game, some of the charts and his dribbling numbers and his attacking actions are up there with some of the best midfielders in the world. So this is a really good piece of business. And like I said earlier at the start of the video, people are going to sort of doubt Wolves, but I think these are the type of deals that Wolves needed to do. These are the type of deals that Wolves mentioned right at the start of the summer that they were going to do. And these are the sort of players that will go for bigger and better fees in the future if Wolves do ever decide to sell. We're going to very quickly finish on a couple of the late pieces of transfer news that happened on deadline day and just before. The first one being Harvey Griffiths, a midfielder who's played very often for the 23s and 21s at Wolves. He even made his first team debut against Blackpool in the Cup on Tuesday in central midfield. He came on for Joe Hodge, who had picked up an injury. He's gone out on loan to Warsaw, so a big chance for him to get regular first team men's football. So a huge opportunity for Harvey Griffiths, who's had some good spells for the 21s as well. And another big one, and this was a possible incoming. Now, over deadline day and the Thursday, Wolves were looking at strikers. Obviously, Che Adams was one, and that deal had fallen through. But a new rumour, a new link was Boulaye Dia, currently playing for Salernitana in Italy, scored 17 goals in Italy last season, Senegalese international. And Wolves have put a bid in late on Thursday for him, according to Fabrizio Romano. There were other journalists saying that Wolves had submitted a loan offer with an obligation to buy, and of course that never materialised in anything. But there was breaking news today that Dia is not in the squad this weekend because he was disappointed that a move to Wolves did not come to fruition. So that's a striker. Very interesting that Wolves were sort of looking at improving the firepower. I said it on our live stream last night. I don't think a striker was essential for me. Of course, it would have been great to have another player there, but I don't think this was essential. But the fact that this is the sort of outcome means that we may well see Wolves, if they do need that little bit extra firepower come January, a move for Boulaye Dia could get reignited in January. But guys, that is all for today's video. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about the new signings. I believe if you are watching this before the Crystal Palace game on the 3rd of September, I believe Tommy Doyle, Enso and Santiago Bueno should all be available for selection if fit. I know that Bellegarde is probably a little bit too late and we're going to have to wait till after the international break to see him. I don't even think he's in England anyway. But touching on Santiago Bueno, I believe he has been injured up until recently as well, and that's why he hasn't starred in the La Liga as of yet. So he's just come back from injury, so he may not quite be ready until the international break either. But guys, do let me know your thoughts on today's video. I really do appreciate the support, as I've already said. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll catch you all very, very soon.